Okay, more free online role-playing games, and we're not talking video games. We're talking like pen and paper role-playing games. Here's a whole set of books under the Talislanta name, and this is a complete role-playing system with like a monster manual, a whole bunch of like crazy player character classes that kick butt, and a bunch of awesome art. And then there's like a magic manual, and then there's like an adventure book or something. And it's by this Stephen Michael Seshi, and and this is like stuff that's like, it's an awesome system. I remember buying it as a supplement to play AD&D in the 80s. Because it is such awesome art, and I'll put the stunning cover. The stunning cover had this like pentagram. It was almost like a stencil on the soft cover book of like an ancient tome. It was just so cool looking. Your eye was drawn to it. And inside it, all this stuff that you can just use in D&D if you wanted to. Tons of magic spells, tons of monsters, tons of good art, all kinds of crazy classes like mixing warlock with wit with thief, and mixing evil priest with. It was like all these classes were sort of like mixed together, and they gave it like a different name, but it would be like a class that had like some thief abilities mixed in with some magical abilities. And that was very like sword and sorcery, very like Fritz Lieber with Baffer the Grey Mouser, because Grey Mouser was like a magic using thief, and that's kind of a random series. It's really good and bad. It's kind of like sometimes it's hard to read, but sometimes it's like totally awesome. And that was one of the big, fantasy series that was kind of like inspired D&D and stuff like that back in the 70s. So all these books are online for free, and what's stunning is they also put the different like versions. So if you want to play like the first version, they have that, and then there's like the third, second, third, fifth, whatever, right? And in every version, they give you all three manuals, like the monster, the adventure, and then the game world manual, and the magic manual, all this stuff. So it's like a mega ton of stuff, all put up for free. PDFs, beautiful. I mean, this is stuff. This is why you come to this channel. You're going to hear about stuff that's free that you can just like use whenever you want. And their tagline is "Still no elves," because I guess whatever races they had for you to play, it's like humans and I don't know what else. Like I forget. It's been like decades since I used this system, but I just forgot about that. I put this link somewhere, and I was talking about Tecmo that I'd never used, which is another whole game system with like some crazy professor that made up all that stuff. And he worked on it for like 50 years. So that was my last video, and I misquoted the Still No Elves. That was Talislanta. That wasn't Tecmo. But either one of these systems, right? Tecmo is like 60,000 years in the future, and like playing with a bunch of alien races and humans and all kinds of other people, different races, and then it gets like some kind of catastrophe, and they go back down to like medieval technology. There's like hidden palaces with crazy super science and stuff lying around, but mostly you gotta, and then maybe there's magic that's mixed with super science. I don't even know, right? It was just like a ton of stuff. It was a zillion races and peoples from all different areas, and he wrote all this plot stuff that like Hollywood could just pick up and make a ton of movies, right? And here's another system that you'd probably have to have people play this game system to get some world building out of it. I forget how much world building is in their manual. I haven't popped it open in years and years, but I remember the artwork is sick, and they have all these cool character classes that are like mixtures of other character classes, almost like multi-classing in D&D. And I was trying to get the mic a little closer. Sorry about the audio. And so there's like a lot of fighters will have extra abilities, like some kind of magical stuff and stuff like that. So there's like a mixture, a lot of cool stuff. Anyway, I can't really describe it. You have to check it out yourself. But it's a huge addition to your Palladium game, your AD&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, like first edition from the 80s that you might want to play. Forget all this stuff, 5th edition, AD&D, and all this new stuff. Forget all that. Go back and get the original game, AD&D, find the PDF or buy it somewhere or buy a used book, and make the system what you want it to be, right? Do your own world building and have adventures. Don't get into all these complicated rules and be like, role-playing rule accountants. Like, yeah, you want to have roles to do stuff and who does what never, but AD&D or Palladium are fine for that. So Tunnels and Trolls, so's Talislanta, right? Don't get hung up on the systems, and don't use like these new systems where they like ruin the entire flavor of original D&D, which was like a huge world building built on like feudalism, knights, barons, all that fun stuff. But then there's like interplanar travel. It's just cooked into the culture of AD&D with so many different things that you could do. Like you could go to other planes, you could fight like a lord of hell, or a lord of the demon abyss, which were like opposed to hell. Like there's 999 levels of the demonic abyss, right? And each of those levels is ruled by a different little demon lord person. And I guess when you get further down, they're more powerful. And like, so you might be zapped from some wherever you are into like some other level of hell or level of the demonic abyss and have all this weird stuff. I don't know what's going on there. So it's just like limitless imagination. That was the real. Then there's the astral plane. Then there's like astral projection. Then there's like psionics. There's magic. There's like magic that kind of comes from worshiping a god, which is like clerics and stuff. And then there's like thieves. And there's like witches. And so, you know, you can make all this stuff your own and go anywhere you want with it, right? And an average role-playing game session would have like more action than like 10 action movies, 10 zombie movies all put together. And I really think that somebody could take a role-playing game session and then movieize it. And you wouldn't even need writers. You just let the people play and record all the stuff that goes on, who they fight, where they go, who they get double crossed by, what they're trying to do next, and just make that into movies. And I swear, like Hollywood could just pump out, you know, series after series after series without paying like high-paid writers. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe they'd have to. Who knows, right? But you can get a lot of ideas off of this. And here's another completely free bunch of game books here. Talislanta is the link that you're going to find below. All my videos, look at that link below for all the details. And I'm going to put a screenshot or a good picture showing the cover of one of these books that I used to own. And I tried to buy it again, but I could only get it in like black and white. I couldn't get the one that's like red. And it looks like this, you know, ancient tome with a big pentagram on it with like metal hasps. It's so cool. This is another like totally free library that I don't know how the publishers did agree to do this, but like, and it's funny because there are like Kickstarters surrounding some stuff. I had to dig around, but then I remember the name Talislanta, and then I found it. That's talislanta.com, and look over there on the right, you'll see the library, and that's where they have like, you know, I don't know, there's like at least 20 books over there for you to check out. And I mean, if you wanted to just use this system, you wouldn't need anything else. You wouldn't need to buy another thing in your life. You just go with this and boom. You can play your face off for like years. All right, I will include the links below. Check them out. And remember, this is the channel where you get a lot of stuff that you're never going to hear this stuff mentioned if it wasn't for me. I mean, maybe you would. Maybe you're like, maybe some really hardcore person would just like bring this up at some convention you're at. But like, very rarely, right? Because you have the over-marketed Pathfinder, over-marketed D&D garbage that they put out these days. Forget all that new stuff. Get rid of that New Jack stuff. Get that stuff out of here, you know? Just dump it out of your hold on your spaceship. Throw it out into space. Let it go burn up in the sun. Use the old stuff. Use stuff that, like, when people, this wasn't all about, like, cheap internet commercial pump stuff out kind of stuff, you know, to the idiots kind of attitude by, like, people that aren't into it. This stuff was made by people who were, like, into it. They, like, it's almost like free software in a way. They made it because they were playing the game themselves as a hobby. And they made it better and better and better, right? And there was a massive culture around it back in the 80s and a flavor for that that's very missing in today's Hollywood stuff. And if someone could bring back that, tap into that original feudalism, medieval culture of like, but mixed with this like awesome world building and like can pretty much go any direction you want, right? Like Game of Thrones had a little bit of like dragon stuff, a little bit of tiny bit of magic. This would have, you know, interplanar travel, right? And then like you'd kill some evil cleric or some demon lord, and he'd like teleport onto like the earth and start trying to hunt you down and kill you and lay waste to stuff. And like maybe like some good god would get pissed at that and send down, you know, whatever, some demigod on their side to help you out, but it would be like a battle royale, right? And all kinds of stuff like that. And like, you know, it wasn't like touchy-feely dungeons that are kind of like Tomb Raider, right? This was like, I guess Gary Gygax, the original D&D guy, like no one would survive his dungeon. Like the idea that a dungeon is just like a cakewalk is a joke. Like he would just slaughter off like everybody in the group pretty much. So people would learn to be like massively careful and like, you know, do all kinds of tricks, like a rock on a rope, you know, to like try to hit things. And then like you'd see this crazy trap chew the rock up, right? That kind of stuff. So like, you know, the idea was you're not getting into this dungeon easy. You're not really getting out alive unless you're like unless you're on all the time, you're gonna barely survive. And he would just kill off all kinds of people. People would get pissed because they'd have to hold on, while the rest of the people went through the dungeon, and then but they drink their Diet Coke or their beer and have a little bit of pizza while they're watching the rest of the action. And that was the luck of the draw. Or maybe they'd whatever. They go to some prison cell they'd find down in the dungeon, and they'd have a new character, like a second character rolled up, and they'd take that barely messed up person, guy or girl, and maybe give them a healing potion. They get back up, and then their strength and their skills, and then throw them a weapon, some kind of spear or something, and whatever extra, your cloak you might have, whatever extra stuff you got, and then that person would join the party, right? Maybe you'd bring them back that way. But I don't know if Gygax did that. I would do that all the time because, you don't want to have a player pissed off because their character just got shredded by some trap. You have to throw them a bone and kind of have them. But I wasn't that hardcore. Gygax was merciless. If you came to his gaming table and you brought your character right according to the rules, he'd make sure it was you weren't doing anything funky, right? Trying to make your character like Spider-Man or something. And that's a guy that was into it because he had it in his brain how it was supposed to be, right? It's a dangerous world where you have to have your wits about you all the time. You have to be careful. You have to you know what I mean? You have to take precautions. If you ever saw the movie The Cube, right? This one guy who was the smartest guy, he tied his shoelaces to a boot and he used somebody else's boot and he made this long rope out of laces with a boot and he'd throw it into the next room over. And some of these rooms were all right, but other rooms had acid or strings with saws on them that would slice you up, and so they were going through this maze that was like a dungeon. It was but it was a mechanical dungeon. It was a cool movie. Check it out. It's called The Cube. I think they made 3 of them, and Cube 2 and then Hypercube. But that was something I always wanted to put some people in, a mobile room dungeon that would like a big giant chess set would move all the rooms around and stuff. So you didn't know where the hell you were, and each one might have deadly traps or not, and then the little markings on each doorway, because there was a door, there was a little hatch on each wall, and then there was one on the ground and one above you, right? So you could pretty much try to climb any direction you wanted, but only one hatch would open at a time, kind of thing, I think. I forget if you could open 2 at a time. But, or maybe it was you could open them, and then once things started moving, they'd shut automatically or something, or push you into the room. I forget, but the thing is that's another thing where most of the people were taken out, right? That was a Gary Gygax dungeon, and that's I don't know how. I'd love to go back in time and ask him how he handled people that were pissed because their character just got shredded by a trap, or was this just screw you? You should have been more careful, bitch. Or that's the game. Sometimes you roll and you die. You don't make it. Sometimes you roll. You can't always roll and then just constantly triumph again and again. That's a game that's stacked, right? That's LeBron James being given all these titles in the NBA, or Kobe. Everybody wants to root for that hero, so they pump that hero up, but it's artificial, right? It's not, you see they're kind of pushed along to win, given all these calls. It's Jordan too, same with Lou, whatever. Who knows? Maybe I can betray my Boston roots and say, who knows? Maybe Bird was ballyhooed and given something. Who knows, right? Who knows? Who knows? But at least in the 80s, those games seemed really close, and were kind of rafted the same way. But that's another topic, right? We're not talking about that. But anyway, check out the links below for Talislanta. The book was called The Arcanum. That's the book I got. And there was another one to do with Atlantis, but I think they couldn't do Atlantis as a copyright, so you renamed it Talislanta. Whatever. It's kind of cool, Atlantis, right? That's kind of a cool name for a game, because it conjures up all that mythology about the lost city of Atlantis. So the links will be below, all my videos. And again, you know where to come to get new nuggets of cool stuff. You know what I mean? This is stuff. I wish there was a series of videos that I came across when I was messing around with games, when I was 10, 11, 12, whatever. It would have given me a whole bunch of stuff, because it's kind of cool to find out about new stuff that's high quality and good and well done that you've never heard of. It's kind of coming across a new flavor of cheesecake or something, right? Or a new food that's just totally awesome that you've never eaten before. That's what I look at it like. And who knows, maybe you'll have the same experience. Check it out.